It's setting up right now.
It says we're live on time. How wonderful is that? Hello, hello. It's Tuesday, 4 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock in Costa Rica, 7 o'clock New York, midnight in Ireland, 1 a.m. on Wednesday morning in Italy, 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. Wednesday morning in Australia, and it's Facebook Live. Hello, everyone. Really good to see you and glad that we're on without any extra technical difficulties. And today's a special day. I have my very good friend who in the world of online education, Jeffrey and I have done so many things together, bouncing off of each other and supporting each other over the years. This is my very good friend, Jeffrey Smith, who is the man in the world who has pioneered and carried the torch about the dangers of glyphosate and GMO foods. And Jeffrey has spoken, I'm not going to exaggerate when I say in at least 50 different countries.
I think it's
something
45.
like that. To
you did exaggerate. It's 45. 45.
I exaggerate. So we're talking to a pioneer and a world leader who has had an incredible idea, and we're going to talk about this new idea that Jeffrey has today. But first, Jeffrey, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tom. Great to see you.
Yeah. It's always great. It's always great. And I'm sure many of you out there have seen Jeffrey in different summits and interviews and his documentary. So let's just talk a little about some of the pillars of what is out there, Jeff, that's got your signature to it.
Oh, so we're going to delay the big announcement. All right. I have Institute for Responsible Technology at responsibletechnology.org. You have been a great supporter of us and our nonprofit. Live Healthy, Be Well. It's got a podcast. Secret Ingredients, a movie I did with Amy Hart. Genetic Roulette, a movie before that. Seeds of Deception, a book. Genetic Roulette, also a book. petsandgmos.com. I mean, let me just stop here. protectnaturenow.com. Basically, just go on the internet, you'll find me.
That's right. And the other thing that I want to say, and I've got Facebook Live now here so I can see. And first, a shout out to Steph in Missouri, Denise in London, Terry in San Diego, Smokey, San Diego. Okay, and the list goes on, and I'll say more in a minute. Jeffrey is the only human being I know. Many of you have heard me talk about, in my most recent book, I talk about the pyramid of health, how you have to look at health from 4 different sides, like a pyramid. There's the base, that's the structure. There's the biochemistry, what we eat, drink, the air we breathe. There's the spiritual or emotional, and there's the electromagnetic. There's 4 sides when you're investigating a health concern. And the one that I don't talk too much about is the spiritual or the emotional. And in the books, I've got studies and talk about the validity. I actually think it's the most powerful of them all. And Jeffrey is the only human being that I personally know that has meditated, and whether you call it meditation or prayer or quiet time, just to center yourself, Jeffrey has successfully done this for how many years, Jeffrey?
45.
45 years, twice a day, every day, 20 minutes. No matter what, he always takes the time to center himself so that he's on point in his life. And the result of being on point in your life is everything that he just went through, Genetic Roulette and the books and the movies and the Institute for Responsible Technology, that when you have a passion, carrying that passion out into the world requires some kind of organization. And Jeffrey is the model that I've used for many, many years. Yeah, I really should be meditating more. Yeah, I should have a little more quiet time. Yeah. It motivates me and it empowers me. So I just want to say thank you, Jeff, for your own personal perseverance, because you've impacted on tens, if not hundreds of millions of people already. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Tom.
Now you can pay me the $5 that you owe me. All right. All right, with all of that said, let's get into why Jeffrey's here today. So can you share with us your idea, and when you and I first talked, what you explained to me that you want to do?
Thank you, Tom. So being involved with meditation, I've been aware of and focused on collective consciousness and how consciousness can move in a non-local and non-linear way, and how a small group of individuals can have an impact on a transformation in consciousness that can result in changes in everyone in society. I've been tracking that. I've read research on it. I'm aware of the physics behind it. And I'm aware of a special window in time in systems called a phase transition. And these are magical windows. And I believed we are in a phase transition on the planet now because of the pandemic. And that this is an opportunity to profoundly leap us forward individually and collectively to achieve a new type of society that's available to us that wasn't available to us a year ago. And so I'll explain why I chose a particular type of online program to help this process. It's a 40-day and 40-night program called A Magnificent New Normal. I believe that there's a link for that on the Facebook page. And it's designed to help propel us forward. Now, I'm going to talk about a little bit about what I know about phase transitions, but I want to catch you up in that in my discussions with indigenous leaders and representatives, I learned that this time was actually prophesied by indigenous leaders as just that, a leap forward, a sometimes painful stop, but something that was necessary in order for us to have this transformation. And I talked to people like Lynn Twist, who talked about the indigenous prophecies, which we'll talk about from the Amazon and what that means for right now, the general Latin American or the indigenous peoples in terms of the condor and the eagle and what that means right now, and Ilarion Merkuliev from the Aleutian Islands and what that means right now, but also Bruce Lipton, who described the caterpillar analogy and the cocoon, and Sue Morter, who talks about action at a distance through intention, and so many people that understood this as a special time. So I want to say, after interviewing all of these people who are really just thought leaders and world changers, I come with more confidence than I had when I thought about it at the beginning of the pandemic. And the model that I see in terms of phase transition, it came from a discussion actually from a chemist and a spiritual leader that I saw 40 years ago, that there's 3 phases to a titration curve, which you know very well. And that is, you can just drop some drops into a solution, nothing happens. And then it starts to take off, and then it levels off. The solution does not care about the quality of the drops in the beginning. It doesn't care about the quality of the drops at the end. During the transformation period, it's all about the quality of the drops. That determines how successful, how far the transformation occurs. And I've seen the same type of phase transition in individuals and society. And the way it works, in my mind, very simply, you work really hard to get someone to make a change. Then they say, okay, I will. At that point, the quality of the information is all important. All the information beforehand was like motivational, inspirational, do this, please, okay, finally, okay, what do I do? The receptor cells open up, the information is how. The quality there determines the success of the transformation. It levels off, and then you have a long time before you're willing to make a change in that area again. As I don't know if what your experience was, Tom, but I started hearing from everyone I spoke with during the pandemic, I need to change my life when I get back, when I get out of the pandemic. The pandemic did the heavy lifting, and it dumped us all into a lively phase transition. And I realized this phase transition is not just individuals, it's collective. It's happening as a collective. And this is the opportunity for us to leap forward in a nonlinear, non-classical physics way. And that what we need is to drip feed high quality information to help people make their transformation the best they possibly can. So we created an entirely new type. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I just want you, because you're going through a lot, and it's fabulous. What you're talking about is that where we currently are is in this rise, and many people I talk to have noticed that during this time of being isolated, they've realized some things about the life they were living before that they want to do differently now. That's really great to hear. And I think most of you out there that are listening to this right now, have you had that experience? If you have, just put a comment down in there, and Jeffrey and I will both read them here as we're continuing our conversation. But are you on the same page that you've noticed during this time that the way things used to be, you're going to make it a little different now as we transition out of this pandemic, whenever the transition out is? Do you have some ideas of what you want to do differently? So Jeffrey, if I'm hearing you, what you're saying is for those people that realize they'd like to do something, or they kind of get a sense there's something different that should be occurring for them, what they put into this time right now during this rise will determine how high the rise goes. Am I correct in that?
Precisely.
Great.
So that's why we've pulled together the best thought leaders I can in different areas. So you're familiar, for example, with the relationship work of Alison Armstrong. And so she's in this fantastic interview. And there's Catherine Woodward Thomas, another relationship person. Sarah Crum on money. Lynn McTaggart on the ability to have the attention experiment. BJ Fogg, an expert at behavior change, tells us how we can own the process, turn new behaviors into habits. So we have people dealing with content, dealing with process. In our interview, Tom, you explained how we need to move from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system with all these beautiful ways that you described. Because if we're really serious about transforming, as long as we're in the sympathetic nervous system, we're not going to get it. We're not going to get the choices. We're going to be run by our stress, our fight or flight. And that was absolutely clear. The perlmutters, similar. From the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. Zach Bush on a whole vision of biology. Bruce Lipton, the new science of consciousness. Eben Alexander, a near-death experience. Different people giving different input. And you see, I realized, and there's themes coming out, which are amazing. I realized, once I was going into this, that we all process information differently, and that I wanted to make it available in a different format than the traditional summit format. You and I have been in summits, and dozens of them. We've run summits. This had to be transformation based. How can someone most easily transform? So here are the things that I did differently that I don't know if have ever been done before. First of all, it's 40 days and 40 nights. And that's like a standard, that's one transformational unit. 40 days and 40 nights. And instead of giving 5 or 6 interviews a day, just one. And if you don't have time to watch it for that one day, they're available for 7 days. But we recommend that at least get a dose. And so we have links in each email where you can just listen to the answer to the first question, which I asked you when I interviewed you, which is, what is your vision for a post-pandemic civilization? Over and over again, as I talk to people, I realize the importance of that being the first question and in every interview, because that locks in our direction. It opens up our desiring, our steering. We start to lively create like Lynn Twist talking about redoing the dream of the Western civilization is what she was asked to do by the indigenous leaders. So the vision is important. Everyone gives you that. You can just listen to that each day. Or the second question, what do you recommend for people to step into their full power, to live the highest version of themselves? We know that many aspects of this civilization have removed power, have taken away. We've learned to give away power to our teachers, to our doctors, etc., to the government, and that creates a separation. It creates a disempowerment state, which allows a lot of things to hit the wall as they are now. So asking about empowerment is critical. And then we go deep into the new perspectives and new choices of each person. And then at the end, everyone offers resources, an experiential exercise, and a challenge for our forum community. Now, I realize that not everyone, we don't want to try and grab every gem from every speaker and stuff it into a magnificent new normal. So I recommend for people to get a journal, and we explain how to use the journal and how to look for those statements that reverberate, the knowledge and the action statements. What is reverberating? And it may be 1 or 2 points from one speaker, nothing from another. It may be a long list of things from your favorite speakers, but then also, how do we work with that? And one of the other, yes, go ahead. I'm excited. You better put your hand up when you want to talk. Otherwise, I'm not going to stop, Tom.
Oh, great. This is great. This is paradigm shifting, that there's never been an event like this. And I want to say to everyone here, register, the link's there, and have your friends registered, have your family registered, because this is not another summit on the adrenal glands or on fatigue, where all the speakers are telling what they do for fatigue. This is on changing the paradigm, empowering people on the upward curve. And we want 1 million people to watch this. We really do, because it's going to empower them. And so my question here is, people are going to listen to me talk, or they're going to listen to Bruce talk, Bruce Lipton, and they're saying, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that, yeah, I should do that. Yeah, oh, I should do that. I should do that. What's the difference between what they should do when their brain says, yeah, I should be doing that, and how the exercises are going to guide or focus them?
So I look at, first of all, we have to shift our brain physiology and our whole nervous system so that we can hear that. Otherwise, we're just going to be reacting against the should. And you do an outstanding job, really outstanding job. You're just an amazing educator, letting us know that if we're really serious about using this time as a transformation, we have to do those things to set our nervous system correctly. Then we need to engage brain compatible learning, where it's not just listening and listening. How do we integrate that? How do we use it? For people that step into the empowerment package of this program, we put them into small groups with protocols, how they can discuss it and work it and integrate it. And there's living room conversations run by Joan Blades, who designed living room conversations with others every Saturday during the 40 days for those in the empowerment package. So they get to, and it's based on themes that were lively during the week before. And we have interactive sessions with many of the event leaders, many of the presenters.
So let's just talk about that Saturday thing a little bit. So these living room conversations. So this is like, you know, you've got a book club and everybody reads the book and then you sit around and talk about it. So you're doing an online living room conversation, almost like a book club,
right,
on some of the topics that were talked about in the last week. Nobody's ever done that.
No.
And it's a great idea, because you're not dependent on having to understand what everybody's talking about during their interviews. And you're not having to try to think, how does that relate to me? That somebody else may touch on something, say, oh, that reminded me of what my grandmother said to me when I was 9 years old, and and it's going to reframe everything that you hear. It might. I mean, this concept of, I didn't know about this living room Saturday living room conversations. This is great.
Yeah. So what I figured is, you see, I wanted people who are very, very serious about it. They're the people that buy the package. It's very inexpensive, and it opens up like 12 or 13 live interactive meetings. So like Allison Armstrong's have been answering questions. Rick Smith is going to be doing an authentic communication. Authentic-
I've got to talk about Allison Armstrong for the people that don't know. Allison, Marzi, and I, the last time we came to Costa Rica, it would be about a 2-hour drive to go to a really nice surfer beach, you know, where there's some nice restaurants and on the beach and all that. And we'd drive there and we'd listen to Allison Armstrong on the drive. She is most fabulous, conscious person about relationships. And she had us laughing time and time again at how Marzi's sitting right here smiling and nodding her head at how silly we are as humans when in relationship and the silly things we do. And Allison talks about it, and we're actually laughing about it and not being embarrassed. I mean, some of it's like really exposing, right? But we would laugh. She's got such a great way of that. So Allison's going to be answering questions, which is great. I'm going to be answering questions. Many of the speakers will be, but I don't know that everyone knows about Allison Armstrong. She's someone that you really want to hear speak. She's
Absolutely.
quite remarkable.
We had a fantastic, really fun, deep conversation that is going to be life-changing. It's going to be a kind of a relationship saver or a deepener. Holly Woods, who you know, she wrote a book on finding your purpose through the stages of life called The Golden Thread. I interview her about the finding purpose. She gives some beautiful exercises, and she's going to do a live session for those that are part of the empowerment group. So basically I figured if I'm going through a transformation, what do I want? I want knowledge in a lot of different streams every day. I want to be inspired every day so that I remember, because what we're dealing is so many visuals right now and so many inputs are that we have to be fearful, that it's a disaster. Of course, there's problems with the pandemic, there's death and disease, but very few people are reinforcing what sometimes in our souls we know. And that is, this is actually, well, to put it in the words of Lynn Twist talking about what the Amazonian elders talked about, that we in our souls actually prayed for this time because we were hurling towards such destruction in so many aspects of our lives in an unsustainable society, and we needed to pause to make the change. So as a gift from Earth, according to the Ecuadorian indigenous people, a gift from Mother Earth, even the virus as a gift from Mother Earth, was to force us to stop. And that Lynn Twist says she akins this time to morning sickness. She says, if you have morning sickness and you don't know you're pregnant, it can be a disaster. You're disoriented, you're nauseous. But when you realize you're pregnant, then you appreciate it in a different context. And the pain is greater as you get closer to the birth, but you realize it as a process. So she invites us to be a midwife of the new as we hospice the old. And she talks about another prophecy where there's 500-year changes, and we're at the beginning of the next 500 years, which is light and balance, but there's a few decades of humbling by Mother Earth to put us in right relationship. And that there'll be a coming together of the indigenous wisdom and the white man's non-indigenous wisdom, so to speak, and that we're going to learn from each other to survive and flourish.
You know, yeah, it's really about flourishing, and many of us are concerned about survival, and that's rational right now, but this is about flourishing, how we look at all this and the opportunities to become available. Gwendolyn writes here, I agree. Amongst all the chaos in the world at the moment, I can feel an energy shift happening. And there are a lot of people that comment like that. I've had many discussions with people who notice things like that. And we'll post the link here. It's going to be posted in the chat for Jeffrey's event so everyone can register. And please, please, please tell your friends about it. This is a very different type of event compared to the ones that have happened before. Very, very different. So Jeffrey, What else besides the Saturday living
Okay.
room conversations? How do people implement here?
So we have every single speaker is asked for experiential exercises. Some actually lead them. I mean, I just did an interview before this Facebook Live where someone used a breathing exercise to shift out of the sympathetic nervous system reaction. So we get it from different places. Some people like Eben Alexander's partner, who he did this world famous not near death experience that was on the cover of Newsweek magazine, Proof of Heaven. His partner was also in the interview, Karen, and she gave us a sacred acoustic recording that entrains the brain. So we get a different types of experiential exercises that we can practice or do on our own. And then we also get assignments each day to participate in the forum. And the assignments are not superficial. I mean, people have just bared their souls and their best efforts in terms of describing what the new normal is and the new ways. And so some people are asking us to do some rather amazing things to share aspects of our journey with the larger group. And what I envision is that we'll be moving forward together. Lynn Twist made this beautiful point that when a caterpillar is going to go in the cocoon, first it's a voracious monster. It eats 100 times its weight. And it's like society in a non-sustainable way, hit the wall. Then when it's in the cocoon, there's these certain cells called the imaginal cells, like imagination, imaginal cells. They orchestrate the change, but first they have to find each other. They find each other and then they transform what was a caterpillar into a butterfly. And she said, the people watching this summit are the imaginal cells. The people watching because we're finding each other and we're going to shepherd the transformation to something that that doesn't look at all like it started. A butterfly does not look at all like a caterpillar. And that this is the opportunity. So I very much knew intuitively we needed to have a community. And then also for those that invest in the empowerment package and like the real serious, like I'm going to use the time for this transformation, I have these small groups and a protocol of how to meet and how to discuss. And I've been sitting with, different groups for a long time and learning how to do that and curating conversations. And it's amazing you can create a family in just a few meetings, deep connection and love, which is so important. And not only do we have the mechanism of how to process and integrate and be accountable for the transformation process that we're in, but we get to practice being our magnificence. Because one of the sections of the journal, which we recommend, is not just the knowledge points, not just the action points, but what are you learning about yourself, your mission, your purpose, your what's driving you. So that's a section of my magnificence.
I want to comment here that, and this is all online. The Saturday afternoon living room conversations are online. And if you're registered as Kathy, nobody knows who you are. And so the more you participate and open your heart and open up your fears, those deep concerns you've got that you just don't show out to the world at all, but the more you participate, the more that curve that you talked about, Jeffrey, the more each of us participates, the higher you're going to go up in the transformational aspect, the more power is moving the transformation because you're really engaging this with your heart and soul. So I want to recommend everyone think about this, that as you participate, you give it 100%, 110%. I mean, everything you've got, because nobody knows who you are. You aren't being exposed and made more vulnerable, except you. You're making yourself more vulnerable to you. So this is an extremely safe way of getting some realizations, and by these world-class speakers who are guiding your heart and your spirit into hearing and opening up and thinking a certain way, and they're really good at what they do. That's why Jeffrey's interviewing them. The result is the more you engage and participate. Oh, I don't want to talk about that. Well, wait a minute. Nobody's listening. You're online. This is a Saturday living room online thing where you're just typing. Nobody knows who you are.
Actually,
talk about.
In the living room conversations, we actually are going to break out in the Zoom to groups of 5. So we're going to start everyone as a group, break into groups of 5, and then close with everyone. And then we're also inviting those, again, for those in the part of the empowerment package, they will have their own small groups, and they can we have a way that they can just meet with themselves so that they can go deeper if they want and continue after the 40 days. And we have protocols for that. So the idea is people can choose whether they want to be, in face-to-face relationship, or if they just want to listen to just the first 2 questions or even just the first question and not do anything else, because people have different needs and different amounts of time. But I appreciate what you said about the transformation of society, because as we can talk about in my work on GMOs, there's a existential threat, which you know about, which requires a change in thinking in order for us to continue. And in so many ways like that, we have so many unsustainable directions. What is it that can save us? It's as if we have, let's just say we designed this with Mother Earth. We've created a situation that forces radical change, which actually turns out to be completely required for our continued survival and for our nourishment. We must change the way things have been happening. It's unsustainable, which is an overused word, but it also unsustainable. Just think going off a cliff. We can turn it around, and somehow we've ended up in a situation where we're having labor pains for a new way of being. And I've analyzed and looked at how that new way of being could be. I've analyzed it and looked at it with 40 guests. And that future is the antidote to the problems we're facing now.
That's really marvelous, Jeffrey. Carol says, this is so important. I feel it's the missing piece to healing. Many just heal the physical body, but you need to heal all your bodies. Now is the time. Wonderful. And Joanne says, awesome. Carol says, thriving, not surviving. Janice says, we're pregnant with the birth of our new future. And that's really great. So that's the kind of responses I'm hoping for that by bringing you on, Jeff, is that people get it. They say, oh my God, this is exactly what we need right now. So that's why I'm saying to everyone, as you register for this, share it with your friends. Share it with the people who you want to walk with you on this path to a new tomorrow. I don't want to sound evangelical or anything, but this really is a way, because as Jeffrey said, our civilization is not sustainable. We know it's not. 1 out of 3 elders dies with Alzheimer's now or another dementia. 1 out of 3. Autism is going through the roof. The way that we're destroying the planet, we've all heard all of this stuff. So we're going in a direction that's not sustainable. How are we going to do that? You have to change your paradigm. You have to change the way you think. So this is a mechanism that's never been done before, and experts in the field of putting this kind of online education together, there's no one who's more experienced than Jeffrey at this. That was in my introduction. So Jeff, I'm so thrilled by what you're doing. I think it's great, really great.
I want to share something from one of our listeners, Karina Natalie Saarinen. She said, the new earth paradigm inspires my soul to speak truths fearlessly. These times inspire core beliefs that we know what it is that we are here to dream, to manifest, to share, to hold as possible. Now, this concept of fearless, we talk about this in the 40 days. And you may have had this experience too, Tom, because you're a global leader. You've stepped into a yes, a resonating yes. I asked once, actually several times, that when I'm speaking to groups, how many people feel like there's something burgeoning, calling them to step into a higher version of themselves, to do more, and hands go up. Now, when people are in the process of listening to that, they may hit against their own ceiling, which is the voices on the bus of, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough education, what if they reject me? Yeah. And so we talk about going through the ceiling to above the roof, where the air is clear and there's a fearlessness. In that space, when you are actually sitting in the part of you that is doing the calling forth, that is doing the yes saying, if you meet with that, you no longer have to face and deal with all those voices on the bus, because there is a power in us that, and this, so a lot of what this is for me, and this is my perspective, because it's going to be different when you go through it. It's an opportunity for the calling inside of us. As Karina says, the New Earth paradigm inspires my soul to speak truths fearlessly. It will inspire us to step into a fearless mode. And from there, we have actually more resources. We pull the synchronicities to us. We pull the support from nature herself. We're connected more to that collective. We can co-create more with other people and other non-people. We are in a situation where we are doing what we came here to do. Now, what's critical is not to wait. What's critical is not to wait till we've released the pandemic. People have gotten their old lives back. We have a new plateau, and we have all that inertia to move against. The pandemic has done the heavy lifting. It's put it into this cauldron, this alchemical space. And if we don't do it now, oh my God, the biggest lost opportunity in living history. So this is the time. And this is why when I approached Health Talks Online to do it, they were already overbooked to the end of 2021. And I explained what was happening. And I said, the only time to do this is now. I can't wait till that. They had four summits a month. So they delayed one actually and put this in to start on September 14th. And they've never done anything like this with a 40-day summit. And they contributed all sorts of great ideas. They now have an optional small group coaching session for the empowerment community. It was their discussion with me that came up with the small group concept. We're all behind this. We're all behind using an entirely new online system dedicated to transformation. And I tell you, having gone through these interviews, they're amazing. They're amazing people. And they're all inspired about this vision of a post-pandemic civilization, how we get there, what they can offer. Think about doing that every day, where you align yourself to a bigger vision, a bigger vision, a bigger vision, and you're learning how to transform, what aspect you want to deal with. So many different ways, not in an overwhelming way, but write down the things that reverberate, work with them, draw pictures about them, journal about them, discuss them with study buddies, go through it with your whole family, and plan to come out different. Plan for this 40-day and 40-night journey to be a transformation, to be a chrysalis. And that's what you talked about, is taking it seriously. I really want people to take it seriously. I would prefer that people didn't dabble, but I think if they dabbled, they'd be drawn in anyway. Because I think we're going to create an energy between all the people listening that even the dabbling to start will be a transformed person at the end.
Yeah, I think that first, I agree with you. And second, I think that everyone's at a different stage of development on their life. We know from the book that came out 15 years ago, Stages of Change, that some people, they're just not, it's not on their radar, they're not interested. Some people are kind of interested to hear a little more, but they really, aren't going to do anything. But then, contemplation, I'm thinking about it, but then when they actually take action, then they're ready to go. And most of the people that follow theDr.com and follow us here, they're ready to go. That's why they're here, because this isn't some, Sunday afternoon walk in the park to listen to me. You really gotta,
No, Tom, you've never been to walk in the park. You want people to walk and be healthy by the time they get to the other side, and you tell them how.
there is that. So those that are here are ready. We're all ready. And I know that. And so please, of course, you're going to register. The links are there for you. And tell others about this, the people that you care about. Wouldn't it be great to have conversations and Saturday afternoon living room conversations with your friends, 2 or 3 friends? I've talked before that I did a men's weekend back in 1988 called the New Warriors, and it was really a catalytic event for me. And for 8 weeks afterwards, the men who had gone through, we had a Thursday evening meeting with the facilitator. And the facilitator gave us exercises to do, kind of like what Jeffrey is doing here, to give you some guided images and things to think about. We did things like look around the room, look at every man's eyes. Who do you trust the most? Tell him, and tell him why. Well, you look like my Uncle Frank, and he always was so kind to me when I was growing up. I just feel safe around you. Now look around the room. Who do you trust the least? Tell him, and tell him why. Well, you remind me of that kid down the street that beat me up when I was like 12 years old, and I don't like you. Those kinds of whoa, exercises. We did that for 8 weeks. Then the facilitator left. It was up to us if we were going to get together again. My group got together every Thursday night for 18 years. 18 years. And now we all moved to different parts of the country. Now we get together 2 to 3 times a year. But now every other Sunday, we do a Zoom call together. We're the tightest brothers ever. And we talk about our lives, and the rule is what's said here stays here. And so we talk about our families, and when our kids are acting like assholes, excuse me, but when there's problems, some place that we can let it go. So the idea of community structured around a similar goal, wanting to be a better man, structured around a similar goal, wanting a better planet. That it's time for a change. This concept of community is so powerful. And I'm just thrilled with what you're doing with it, Jeffrey. I'm really thrilled.
I'm glad you mentioned the Mankind Project, because I did that 10 years after you, and was in men's groups for 15 years. And I remembered there was this one facilitator that I was very deeply impressed with, but I forgot his name. So I worked my way back 2 weeks ago and got him and interviewed him 2 hours ago, Jim Mitchell. And he is teaching people in corporate leaders. He's taught in Folsom Prison. He's taught African-American men and women, youth, young boys. He's been doing this for 30 years. And he also rewrote those meeting protocols for the Mankind Project. So he's right on the process. And we talked about how to listen big. Now, you taught me, and we've talked about be more interested than being interesting. He talked about a process that he did that took him years of listening big and creating a real change in himself that was palpable in the person speaking, and gave us exercises to do so that we can, and when we talked about it, it was like that was a fundamental part of the change in society to learn this. I asked him, I said, you've done so many transformations. He had led tons of New Warrior weekends, and he had half dozen different weekends that he had created. What's the transformation process look like? What are the stages? And then, okay, so that's a stage based on something that's uncomfortable. What about those that want to live their mission, their vision? What's the stages of that? So he was giving the pearls of wisdom from 30 years of work. And he was one of the guys that when you saw him, lead, he goes, oh, I want what he's got. He's walking his talk. So I pulled I pulled together people from different aspects of my life, and the meetings were very much inspired. We don't go in the protocols that I'm writing for the groups that are meeting are a little lighter weight than you'd get in the sense of the integration groups. They're not confrontive because then it's not after going through one of these intense weekends where you have a lot of training, but they are deepening. I've been running a group for 4 years in a certain way, and we love each other, and our meetings every week are like one of the deep important parts of our lives. And I explain how to do that because I want to give that away as one of the pieces that people can have going forward in their magnificent new normal. I'm so glad you brought up this.
Yeah, and I see that Jerry's here, one of my guys in the group, in the group together. Jerry says, I'm one of the men he's talking about. Hey, Jerry, I didn't know you were here. Great to see you, man. And Jerry and I and our group actually talked with Jim Mitchell a week ago, just over a week ago. We had about a 3-hour conversation about men's work and about the exercises and some feedback. And he's a remarkable man. So that he's one of the interviewees is fabulous. It's great value.
And the thing is, one of these interviews can be life-changing. I mean, if you just took Jim's interview and just did the first part about how to listen big and just develop that, it could be a life changer. And the thing is, this is where when I finish each interview, I'm kind of like, wow, this is really significant.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous that you close the interview and then just take a breath and say, oh, this is going to really help. Yeah. There will be some people that this will be the stairway to heaven for them, if you will. I see a message here from Dwin. Dwin says, this gives me hope. My mom just died of Alzheimer's last month. The fires are burning in California. My friend just committed suicide on Saturday. The virus, it's all overwhelming. I'm so excited to start this. Great, Dwin. Hang in there. Hang in there. And yes, I'm glad that you feel excitement about this. And yeah, you'll find some answers here. You will, my friend.
Yeah, and Mia says, tonight's conversation gives me excited shivers. It is the great awakening. I'm so happy to be part of it. Trying so hard to plant seeds of hope wherever I go, and all that I speak to in my role as a taxi driver, I am driven to inform, wake up those that do not understand all that is happening in the shadows right now. So I'm saying, I have the feeling that there is a bell going off in the hearts and minds of millions of people. But for many people, it's off in the distance. It's like one of those sounds you don't pay attention to. And I am hearing from people that are just learning about this magnificent new normal event. And they're just like what Mia said. They're like, wow, it's being overshadowed by the news. It's being overshadowed by the fear. It's being overshadowed. But when they listen more closely, it is, as you say, Mia, the great awakening. I mean, many of us feel like this is why we're here in a general way for decades, but now I feel like this is this is the time I'm here for. This is the time. I mean, there's so many reasons why this is the time. I think you get it. I don't even have to say it. I think it's already ringing inside.
I agree, and that everything that's come before has made us more prepared to do what we do now. And when people go through therapy and they've had some things come up about their childhood, whatever it is that has to be addressed, people often get to a point where they realize I couldn't be who I am today if the things that happened to me didn't happen, that they've helped to make me who I am today. Now, let's just take this and move forward in a positive way to make the planet a better place for everyone, right? And so this goes beyond hope for me, Jeffrey. The magnificent new normal is actually a path. a path to a magnificent new normal. And we want that. We want the norm to be at that. I love your graph. I love that analogy that the more we put in a little bit of time every day to the event when it begins, the more catalyst it is to bring that new norm up a little higher, a little richer, a little more full of life and vitality. I think this is just a fabulous, fabulous paradigm that you're setting. And it's not been done before. No one's done this. This is something that Jeffrey came up with. And it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't have happened if you hadn't done everything that you've done up until this point. So,
Well, I do want to share, I want to marry the two for just a second. Someone's asking for the link in case someone can share it again in the chat. And they're asking if they could put it on the regular website. So in my work, I've been exposing the dangers of GMOs. Now, it may sound like I'm going to go down into a negative space here. I'm going to tell you, stick with me. We're going to come out the other side. Don't leave in the middle, it'll be depressing. But we're going to come out the other side with a magnificent new normal. So right now, gene editing is so cheap that you can buy a do-it-yourself gene editing kit on Amazon for $169 and create your own new organism and release it into the environment, corrupting the gene pool, and there's no reversibility. It becomes a permanent part of the gene pool. Multiply that by all the different people that want to do that, all the different laboratories, the transnational corporations that have robotics driven by artificial intelligence to create new organisms, and everything that has DNA which is being targeted, and we may replace nature with a corrupted gene pool irreversibly in this generation, with a technology whose number one most common result is surprise side effects. Knowing what I know about GMOs and those side effects, I say this is an existential threat. I say that this is something that could be more than a catastrophe. It could be a cataclysm. I could recount a bacterium that was almost released in the 90s that could have theoretically ended terrestrial plant life, or one in the 80s that could theoretically have changed the weather patterns on the planet forever. I'm looking at a possibility of a technology damaging all living beings and all future generations. And I'm looking at, okay, I'm going to start a movement now. And we're doing this movement building to turn it all around. And we're looking at all the classical uses. Okay, we want to create laws and liability laws and education and curriculum. We need $25 million to start and all this stuff. But what is the real antidote? The real antidote is when the tide moves our consciousness up higher. And we realize that we are part of an ecosystem. When they released 24 rabbits on Christmas Day in 1859 in Australia, they were not thinking of the impact on the ecosystem. And by the 1920s, there was an estimated 10 billion rabbits, because rabbits multiply like rabbits, and it was a disaster for the ecosystem. Now we're thinking about replacing all of this structures, all the species in an ecosystem with new versions. What is the antidote? It is to think huge. Think not just for all humanity and not just for all living beings, but for all future generations. What kind of person thinks that way? The kind of people that are going to emerge from a transformation of a caterpillar to a butterfly, where they go from classical physics to quantum physics, where they go from a separation society to a unity society, where they go from a mind-oriented economy and civilization to one that combines the heart and the mind. It's like we have now no choice. And we as humans often require that level of pressure. And the pressure doesn't feel good. Claire Dubois, an amazing speaker, I asked her what she recommended that we do for stepping in our power. She said, feel the discomfort. Go into it, because it is calling, it is demanding a change. And we have plenty of discomfort right now. But if we see it as the birthing process, if we see it as the pain of labor, we realize that the birth will give rise to something that is different, that has never been seen before. And that because we are humans with consciousness and we're connected to the intelligence of nature. We're connected to the ability to arrive at a place that can support our existence. And that is a new way of thinking, a new way of connecting. So this is my best effort right now, a magnificent new normal. And it's interesting that it happens to be the antidote for the other work that I'm doing as an activist. And I didn't even think of that when I started.
Well, Jeffrey, that is, those are profound words to pause with here now and to let everyone just think about over the next day or two. So the link is here. It's been posted a couple, 3 times, so it's readily available. Register now. Once we go offline here, just click on the link and register, and then share it with those you care about. If you have a best friend from college or you haven't talked to them in a while, reach out, say, hey, why don't you register for this? Let's do the Saturdays together, or have conversations together. So with that, Jeffrey, I just want to say thank you. You and I are going to be in touch so many times during this event and see how we can support you and support the event. Look forward to it. And thank you very much for coming today and to share your vision and your passion with us. And to all of you out there, thank you so much for being here. Share the word, and we'll see you next week.
And thank you,
Thanks
Tom.
again.
Thank you, Tom.